Welcome to r/reader of Reddit. And in today's story, Opie kicks her mother out of her house. Before that, am I the a-hole for telling a well-meaning rich coworker she's a snob after criticizing my parenting? I'm a 23-year-old guy working as a project coordinator. It's not the Ritz, but it pays the bills and keeps me out of trouble. Things at home are to walk in the park, as I have to help out a fair bit with my nephew, Gene 2M. My younger brother, Lennon, 18M, is his father, and he's more of a part-time dad. He spends half the time trying to get modeling gigs. We both had a rough start, living on a council estate with the day too busy sinking pints, and our mam working all the hours under the sun to pay the rent after he did a runner when Lennon was 10. I've been his father figure since we were kids ourselves. Lennon struggled with everything he had going on. He can be manic at times, and with Gene's birth, everything went a bit haywire. He tries, bless him, but he can't manage by himself. That's where I come in to pick up the slack to make sure Gene has a proper chance. Then there's Susan, 46F. She's one of those middle-class Southerners who's never had to worry about the price of a pint of milk, let alone rent. Her biggest worry is whether the au pair's taken the dog for a walk. She's in HR. She's the sort who'll give you a smile that doesn't quite reach her eyes, you know? The other day I was talking to one of the lads about how Lennon's had to travel down south to get some photos done for his portfolio, and how I've practically become Gene's full-time dad. Susan's sitting nearby, and she decides to pipe up. She goes, "Darling, don't you think you're doing Lennon a disservice by stepping in all the time? He needs to take responsibility for his own actions, and you're just enabling him by always being there to pick up the slack." I tried to ignore it, but she just wouldn't stop. "You know," she says, "sometimes people need to hit rock bottom before they learn. You're preventing him from growing up." Then she hits me with the classic line, "This is what happens when kids have kids. It's not your job to clean up his mess." I'm not about to let Gene suffer just because Susan thinks Lennon needs a wake-up call. I'm doing what I can because Gene deserves better, and Lennon's got enough on his plate without Susan's condescending advice, but I do see that maybe she's trying to be helpful. I told her straight, "Maybe you should keep your snobby advice to yourself. You haven't a clue what it's like up here. I'm not letting Gene suffer just because you think Lennon needs some sort of tough love." She looked stunned and muttered about making her own bed before huffing off. A few of the lads reckon I might have gone too far, but I reckon she needed to hear it. Maybe her advice works in her posh little world, but not here. We don't have the luxury of letting people learn their lesson when there's a kid involved. But now I'm wondering, did I overstep? Should I have let her carry on, or was I right to tell her where to shove it? Next story is, am I the a-hole for asking my uncle's mistress, now wife, to pay for his health care? My uncle, my dad's brother, married young to a woman from a wealthy family. Their marriage fell apart over time, and he ended up cheating on her multiple times. They stayed married until he got his long-term mistress pregnant. After this came to light, they divorced. My uncle lost his family home and moved in with his mistress, now wife, far from our extended family. He's now almost 70 with a teenage daughter, while his other kids are adults with their own families. Unfortunately, he's fallen ill and needs medication, but his savings ran out due to bad investments. My dad has been paying for his medical bills, but he is retiring later this year. I recently asked his now wife to prioritize his health care over other expenses, especially since she's still planning to send their kid to an expensive private school. All my cousins went there, and hasn't been taking proper care of his health and foods. She accused me of meddling in too much and not wanting her daughter to succeed in life, and jealous of her, as I did not go to a private school growing up. I sympathize with my uncle's situation, but I also feel like this is largely self-inflicted on my uncle's and her part. Still, I don't think it's fair for my dad to bear the burden. Next story is, am I the a-hole for asking my uncle's wife to focus on his healthcare? Edit for more context. My dad already told my uncle and his wife about this, and my dad is also paying for their dads, my grandpa who has 90 daily expenses. Part of his pension money is used for my uncle's bills. I am too, but I am also just starting out in life. My uncle's wife blocked his number, and my uncle lashed out on my dad. Months later, my uncle asked for foods and gas money from my dad, so we suspected neglect as well. Cultural context. We live in a developing country in Asia. Healthcare system was not really good. I pointed out his past background to draw comparisons between what life he left and the consequences he is facing now. Next story is, am I the a-hole for being the reason why my brother has stopped showering? I, 16F, live with my only brother, 13M, and our parents. My brother has never been the most clean person, and while his bedroom is very neat and organized, he constantly leaves his trash and toys throughout our family's kitchen and living room. There are almost always Legos covering the floor and furniture, despite having a whole Lego studio set up in our basement for him. The mess is extremely aggravating to me as I already have pretty bad anxiety. It is annoying because I am the only person who it bothers, so I am the only person left to pick it up. Last week, my brother announced to me that he was going to start showering in my shower. For context, we have 2 showers in our house, one in my parents' bedroom's bathroom and one in the only other bathroom, which I currently have been the only one using for the past year. The whole family used to only use the shower in our parents' bathroom because it is much bigger and nicer. However, last year I cleaned up the other shower and bought shelves for it, in order for me to start using it as my shower. While it sounds stupid, this is the only place I have to myself, besides my room, that is not covered with my brother's junk. I actually take care of it and clean it every week. Also, I have a decent-sized collection of body washes that I have bought with my own money from my job. When I heard that he wanted to start using this space, I felt a little upset as this shower is pretty important to me. Yes, I know it sounds stupid. My parents sided with me after telling them, as they said that he can keep using the shower in their bathroom that he has been for the past 5 or 6 years. Now he hasn't showered for the past few days, and I am starting to feel bad. However, I just want one space to myself, since he gets to trash our entire house with his large Lego collection and toys. And I simply don't have time to have more to clean up since I play 2 sports, go to school, and work, and he doesn't ever feel obligated to clean despite not really doing anything besides going to school, playing with Legos, and watching TV. Am I the asshole? Next story is, am I the a-hole for posting about a former teacher online? I, 25F, had a 5th grade teacher who was at least what I perceived to be an adult bully. She would joke to our class about an autistic kid on the playground and would even mock the way he runs and flaps his arms. I struggled in math throughout elementary school and had an IEP for it, and this teacher would constantly, in a condescending tone, tell me my methods were wrong in front of the whole class. She would favor the A students in the class and would brag about them to everyone else while announcing that they get the special privilege of sitting in the back. I asked her when I could have a back seat, and she angrily under her breath shouted, "No, you will never get one." I was mortified. One day, she told our class we were going to have mandatory binder checks to make sure ours were organized. I went to place mine on her desk, and she angrily asked, "Why are you giving me this? Go sit back down and do your work." She then had the audacity to call my mom into an emergency meeting with a school psychologist and guidance counselor because she thought I was disturbed and that there was something wrong with me mental health-wise. All because I mentioned I don't get along with my stepdad at home, but that's a story for a different time. She yelled at my mom that she needs to do something now, which put her in a panic and sent her late to work upset and crying. My mom revealed to me when I was older that she hated her, too. Well, just the other day, my former school district posted a Meet the Teachers post on their LinkedIn. Lo and behold, Ms. Newly Divorced and Looking Likes *T was their featured teacher of the month. The post mentioned all of these positive things about her career and experience, which I already knew were completely made up, and lots of what looked to be parents and other staff were commenting generic, "She's awesome and so hardworking" comments. So I took to my keyboard and wrote the absolute truth about her. It was time I set things straight. I wrote all the above about how she bullied me and other students with special needs, especially how she picked favorites in her classroom. It was a real long post, and some commenters, who clearly never had her as a teacher, had the audacity to respond that my comment was unnecessary. One of my colleagues who I'm connected with on LinkedIn stopped me a few days later and said they read my comment. They suggested I not do that again because even though they do not follow my district's page, they still saw what I wrote and that I could have publicly humiliated this teacher on an international platform. I told them what I wrote was none of their business, and that unless they have had this teacher and experienced her bullying, they need to stay out of it. AITA for going to this length? Next story is, am I the a-hole for kicking my mom out? I'm 25F, married, mom of 3 small children. Things are out of control since my mother moved in. She's 56, divorced, retired Army veteran, and until recently, had a job for 9 years. She lost it after getting caught napping in the bathroom at work, something she'd bragged about in the past. She was gone so long that her boss went looking for her. Rather than face getting fired, she quit. She is in good health, Christian, never had alcohol or drugs, and no known mental health issues. With her having nowhere to go and having alienated most of our family, I felt I had to let her move in, even though we hadn't spoken in over 2 years. She is the 4th of 9 siblings. None speak to her. All 5 of my older siblings went no contact with her about 8 years ago. My husband and kids had never even met her in person before this. The first 2 months were tense but manageable. However, things have taken a turn for the worse with a few minor but 2 major incidents. The first happened when my husband was away for work. We had been exchanging some intimate emails. One night, I went to the kitchen for a glass of water and found my mother using my MacBook. She quickly closed it and began apologizing for reading my emails. I was shocked when I realized she had seen everything, including some explicit pictures of my husband. I didn't tell him that part. I lost my composure and haven't been able to talk to her much since. She hides in the guest room, avoiding even her grandchildren. The final straw came after a family outing with my hubby and kiddos. We had prepared a slow-cooked meal in the oven so that dinner would be ready when we returned. After being out for about 7 hours, we came home to find our entire meal, a dish meant for 6 people, gone. 5 chicken leg quarters with sides. It was as if animals had ravaged it, but it was just my mother. She sat in the living room, hands covering her mouth, eyes wide with shame, saying, "I couldn't stop. I just couldn't stop picking at it." There was nothing left but bones and drippings. My husband and I were too shocked to speak. We retreated to our bedroom in silence, trying to process what had happened while the kids played in the other room. I felt like I was drowning in embarrassment and frustration. My mother later knocked on our door and offered to buy us Taco Bell. We just stared at her until she left. I called one of my brothers and a sister, both of whom reminded me that they had warned me not to let her move in. Mael is kind and nurturing, the complete opposite of my mom, and my husband doesn't know how to exist around her. I've given her a month to find other living arrangements. I'm afraid that if she stays, things will only get worse. We feel the need to lock our bedroom door when we are at home for the sake of privacy, since she's a snoop. I feel like I'm on the edge. It's only been 3 days since the last episode. AITA for kicking her out?